You know, I love sitting out under these trees, sitting by the fire pit and sharing stories and talking about things that matter to all of you guys. It means the world to me. I'm so grateful to my team, Wes, Jamie, and Becca, and Monty, Stacy, who are always fighting for me to have the ability to come out here and do this. I can't tell you what it means to be able to sit underneath these trees and just connect, right? And talk about leadership. And this month is no exception as we start off September. I've sat under a lot of trees and talked about leadership in my life. When I was a Green Beret, the last 5 years or so of my career was with the Village Stability Program. And that was the program that I wrote my book, Game Changers, about, that was all built around this notion of an empowered community is the ultimate antibody to violent extremism. That sound about right, Wes?
That sounds exactly right.
And the interesting thing about that program was that we started very bottom up, very small, so many wonderful special operations leaders and diplomats and development experts who got out there and really advanced this approach with the Afghan people. But I had my share of conversations about this program when it was very new. People were very skeptical under a lot of trees. They were mulberry trees out in Afghanistan that we would sit under, and the rare shade tree and those cool little valleys in the summertime would afford us the opportunity to tell stories. I would talk about empowered communities back home. I would talk about how my grandfather had farmed in low-tech conditions, and however I needed to talk about community engagement, community empowerment with those elders, and even, folks who were not necessarily on board for this under those mulberry trees. That conversation in 2010, 2011, it went from, mulberry trees out in remote villages to district centers where people came in from different villages. But once again, sitting in a circle, fairly skeptical people, some even somewhat hostile. But, me having conversations with these people and influencing them to embrace this community engagement relationship approach. Going into Kabul, Afghanistan, the capital, as the sirens go off. That's the beauty of shooting outside. But in Kabul, at the capital, at the task force headquarters, sitting down with folks like General Petraeus and General McChrystal and diplomats and ambassadors and high-level tribal leaders, again, talking about the power of community. And then all the way over to Washington, D.C., in the halls of Congress, leaning over a map, no kidding, with Senator Lieberman and talking about where those villages are standing up on their own. Once again, engaging and talking about the power of community. And today, 5 years after I've retired, I'm still talking about community and relationships and storytelling, except now I do it in places like Capital One, Fannie Mae, the executive leadership teams at Capital One, real estate deals where my brother and I are working on manufactured housing communities, but still talking about community, relationship. The common denominator in all of that is the desire to own the room, the desire to make powerful connections so that the people sitting across from you feel inspired and compelled to follow your lead, to proceed with that transaction, to engage in what you want them to engage in. This is how you lead when people don't want to follow. This is the essence of rooftop leadership. I call it owning the room. Now, there are all kinds of versions of that, but, let's think about it in your life, wherever you're sitting right now. Owning the room for you could mean you being a corporate leader and making a presentation to your boss. It could be a sales call on the phone as a multi-level marketer, getting that prospect to become a client to buy your product. It could be that you're a financial advisor like Josh and Nick, who I coach, who have dinners and engagements with prospects and bring them in as clients. It could be that you're standing on the stage and giving a TEDx for the first time. I coach Kimberly in this, who's a TEDx coach. Eric, my dad, Rex. TEDx speaking from the stage. That could be a way of owning the room. Maybe you're a nonprofit leader. You're forming a nonprofit like my Pathfinder Dan or Romy Camargo, and you're asking donors to support you. Maybe you're a veteran coming out of military service and you're transitioning into the world and you need to go in for a powerful job interview. Or maybe you're doing your first media hit, your first news hit, your first radio spot, right? Are you pitching investors as an emerging small business leader and you need that private capital? Or maybe you're just giving your vision to your team, to your employees about where you want to take the company over the next year or two. I've done all of those, and I've learned through all of that body of work to own the room. Now let me tell you what owning the room is not, right? Wes and I talk about this all the time. Owning the room is not, hey, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today? Yeah, everybody's looking good. That's gross. It's creepy, and it's a form of control. I'm not talking about owning the room like you see on a lot of these Facebook ads and things like that where you manipulate the people in the room to achieve leverage or control. That's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about or becoming the best in a certain thing, I don't think that necessarily allows you to own the room. What I'm talking about is when it comes to owning the room, what I'm talking about is the ability to be relevant to the people you serve. Remember, rooftop leadership is a servant-oriented form of leadership. And when you are relevant, when you're the most relevant person in the room, that's when you own the room. That's when you hold the room in your hand. That's when you create an arena of safety where people feel connected to you and obliged to follow you, to buy from you, to invest in you. This is not theory. I have no patience for theory. You know, the reason I started off with those stories or locations of where I had community engagement conversations was to simply show you that in most of those situations, at least in the beginning, in those villages and those districts, it was life and death, right? If you don't make a connection, if you don't own the room, it could cost someone's life. It could cost a strategic mission. But even at the corporate level and in real estate deals, if I didn't own the room, the stakes were very high. Catastrophic loss of revenue, or loss of a deal, or loss of a client. What I'm talking about when it comes to owning the room, I have no patience for theory. I only have patience for what works. And what works, rooftop leaders, is human connection. And human connection is built around relevance. Are you relevant to the people you serve and the problems they have? That clear enough, Jamie?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Are you relevant to the people you serve and the problems they have? Because if you are, there is a certain thing called reciprocity that every human feels when someone demonstrates relevance and concern for the problems in their life and their cares and what they worry about and what keeps them up at night. It evokes a level of what's called reciprocity, where that person then feels compelled to want to do something for you. It is a biological mechanism that is in place because we are the most social creatures on earth, because we form tribes and groups, and it's how it works. And if you understand that, and you work from that context, you have a competitive edge. So everything is about being the most relevant person in the room. As a rooftop leader, that's what we're going to be driving at, right? Because when you achieve relevance, you achieve reciprocity. And whether you're asking for donors, asking for a sale, or whether you're a teenager trying to get the folks in your circle to follow your lead, okay? It is all about relevance. Are you perceived as relevant to my problems and to my world? And almost no one does this. But if you do, you have a competitive edge in life and business. Is that clear enough, Wes? That is what we're going to be talking about this month, right? We've spent the last couple of months on narrative competence and mining and developing your story. We're going to pivot now. We're going to bring it external. And we're going to talk about how you can hold the room in your hand, how you can own the room by being the most relevant person in the room. People follow relevance, especially when trust is low and stakes are high. And the stakes have never been higher in this country in both life and business, all right? So your homework, I want you to ask yourself, am I ready to be relevant? Am I ready to be relevant? Am I ready to provide, because it's not for everybody. In fact, it's not for a lot of people, right? This requires you to serve others and be relevant to others. And if you do, if you meet their goals, as Stuart Diamond says, they will feel compelled to meet yours 10x from any other transaction or pitch you could do. If this interests you, if you think you want to go deeper on this, you should probably be part of our Rooftop Leadership community, of our Rooftop Leadership membership program, right? It's called Rooftop Leadership Mastery. And for about what it takes to eat out every month, you can join this and have unlimited access to our one-stop learning center, Rooftop University, to monthly group coaching calls that are immensely powerful and dive into this stuff in real time, and a private team room where servant leaders like you from across the country, hell, across the world, and all these different disciplines come together and rally and share best practices around this thing like relevance. How cool would that be in your life? What would that mean in your life? Even if you don't have the revenue to come to a live event right now or the time necessarily to dedicate to full-time coaching, this is a way to up your game in a very big way for what it takes to, take your family out to eat once a month, right? So become part of Rooftop Leadership Mastery. Become part of our small tribe that's making a huge impact in the world, and you'll see a big return on your investment in both your life and your business. You go to rooftopleadership.com/mastery, click it, join it. I'll see you on the rooftop.